Good morning. I'm Reverend Liz Lerner-McClay, and on behalf also of Reverend Roger Peltier and Worship Associate Kimberly Noble and Chalice Lighter Lisa Votis and Music Director Fred Jodry and Michael Capelli, today's technical aid helping us keep it real. Welcome to worship with the First Unitarian Church of Providence, where we love beyond belief. We expected to be with you from the meeting house today, but the weather was not aligned with our plans, so we are using our ever-evolving technical capacities to Zoom ourselves together and to you. No matter what comes, First U is here for you, and this is the day we have been given. May we make the very most of it, starting now together. Our invocation today comes from the Reverend Hope Johnson. Unitarian Universalism lost some very bright lights in 2020, And losing hope was one of the hardest blows for so many across the continent. She was a force in our faith for intercultural understanding and appreciation, for dynamic congregational and faithful engagement, for spiritual evolution, and for love. I am so glad for the opportunity to share her words with you this morning. It is no coincidence that they match our service so well. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. We are active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our love as best we can. We are one, working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing, and rejoicing, getting to know each other, taking risks, opening up, questioning, seeking, searching, trying to understand, struggling, making mistakes, paying attention, asking questions, listening, living our answers, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, and being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community together. We are one.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Votis, and I'm a member of First Unitarian. Please join me from home today in lighting the chalice. This light burns also in our hearts, and it lights our path towards harmony and justice and hope for all.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul that's blessed is made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are standing on the side of love, hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by grace, we dare to proclaim we are standing on the side of love. Sometimes we build barriers to keep love lightly bound, interrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are standing on the side of love, hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by grace, we dare to proclaim we are standing on the side of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are standing on the side of love, hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by grace, we dare to proclaim we are standing on the side of love. We are standing on the side of love.
Good morning, friends. I'm Reverend Roger Peltier, and I'm bringing you the joys and sorrows that connect us here at First U in beloved community. A candle of healing to Rosemary Schumann, age 90, who contracted COVID in her assisted living facility. Our prayers go to Rosemary. Candle of healing for Susan Fisher, who had hip surgery after suffering a fall at home. She is now at the Vanderbilt Rehab Center at Newport Hospital, and cards and calls are greatly appreciated. A candle of joy from David Meller for my grandparents, 97 and 100 this month, both veterans of war, both brimming with love, and both well loved in return. And finally, a candle of joy to celebrate the birthday of Janet Downing Taylor. Again, cards and calls are appreciated. Friends, let us rest in the gladness that we have each other to share our joys and our sorrow. Indeed, it makes all the difference. I'm going to ask you now to deepen into worship by preparing our hearts for meditation and prayer. And I'm going to share words by my colleague, the Reverend Barbara Pescan, followed by a time of silence. And remember, at home, if you've lost someone in the past year that you are remembering this morning, please raise your hand or stand so that you can participate in silent tribute to your lost loves. To begin, I'm going to ask everyone to take a deep breath with me. And again. This is blessing. We spend so much time running from ourselves, fleeing from what we know about the goodness in our hearts. We think we can escape the intelligence of our loving. Imagine you are standing before a bodhisattva, Jesus, Buddha, the First Mother. It doesn't matter what you call the Holy One. He has dust on his shoes, chafe clings to her, the smells of being alive. Shining from their faces is the beam of all their questions, the compassion of their living. Can you see yourself through those eyes? Can we know each other like this? We who no longer believe in messiahs can hardly believe in each other. Can we know ourselves seen and know each other the same way until our restless hearts learn to abide in this knowing and this love? Can we live in the gaze of blessing?
Good morning. My name is Kim Noble, and I'm today's worship associate. Today's reading is adapted from the writings of the Reverend Elizabeth Tarbox. Here we are, not knowing for sure what to do next. Do we conserve and play it safe against an unexpected onslaught striking us like one last winter blast? Or do we cast off our coats and take a risk, ready to embrace a spring which is not yet here? Thank God we have each other and this worship to come to when we need to make decisions in our search for security and renewal. May we remember in the chilliest winter storm or the balmiest spring morning, that this place is here for us, that here we share in creation's love, no matter what the season.
Not many years ago, I was at a Unitarian Universalist ministers support group meeting. And during the conversation, one of us said, I'm just going to confess, I have never done a PowerPoint presentation and I have no idea how they work. And the rest of us kind of nodded and smiled and looked noncommittal, which made me suspicious. So when my turn came, I said, let's be honest. How many of us Unitarian Universalist ministers have never done a PowerPoint and have no idea how they work? And all of us raised our hands. Today is the day that, to some degree, I personally break that chain. Determined to find advantages to this online format, I am doing it today, right now, with Michael Capelli's help. I was first taught about this chart you see in front of you by Beth Zensky of One Ummah Consulting. Ummah is Arabic for the word community. So One Ummah Consulting. It was part of a week-long program on building institutional, multicultural, or intercultural understanding. So if you see, it has 4 quadrants, basically, that detail 4 main categories of communication styles. So across the bottom, you can see that there's restrained, emotionally restrained on the left, and emotionally expressive on the right. And then along the side, from the top down, there's direct and indirect. So these all mean what you think they mean. People who are restrained, right? Calm in demeanor, moderate of voice, and so forth. People who are expressive tend to have a greater variety in the tone and pace of their voice and other communication and gestures and body language and so forth. Now, according to One Ummah Consulting, and bear with me here because eventually this is all going to circle back to love, but not yet. Conflict can be about 3 things: material issues, symbolic issues, and relational issues. Material issues meaning whatever is literally directly at hand. Or symbolic issues meaning not what is at hand, but what is suggested by what's at hand. Or relational conflict, in which case it's about the process, the relationship, the connection, or the lack thereof, rather than the particular issue that sparked the conflict. And conflict, but not only conflict, is where most reliably cultural norms for communication become most apparent and sometimes most challenging. So direct communication is straightforward. Naming the issue, addressing it. Indirect communication is implied. People indicate the issue by talking around it, alluding to it, using metaphors, eventually circling to it. So as you see, when we map out this way that we end up communicating, we have 4 styles of communication, and those are in the grid, right? There's discussion style, accommodation style, engagement style, and dynamic, right? Dynamic is, if you look at the chart, dynamic is there on the bottom right. It is emotionally expressive and indirect. Engagement style above it means it's direct and dynamic, and expressive. The discussion style is direct and restrained, and the accommodation style is indirect and restrained. So you've got those 4 ways of doing business. Social psychologists have tested the communication styles of nations and geographic areas as part of understanding how to communicate across cultural and ethnic differences. And here are some of the groupings they found. So here's your next version. It's the same chart, but now it's filled in. So check that out. Under discussion style in North America, the kind of people who tend to be both direct and restrained are people of European American descent from parts of Europe like Great Britain, Sweden, Norway, also Canada. And in Asia Pacific, there's Australia and New Zealand, right? Those are people who are going to be direct, but restrained. People are going to be both indirect and restrained in North America, might be of Native American descent. In Latin America, you might find that in Mexico, Costa Rica, Peru. You'd also find it in Asia, in China and Japan and Thailand. The engagement style, which is expressive and direct, you also see that in North America. In that case, you see it more among African American people and people who come from parts of Europe like France, Greece, Italy, Spain. In Central and Latin America, you've got Cuba and Puerto Rico. There's Russia also. And in the Middle East, Israel. The dynamic style, which is very expressive, but indirect, metaphorical and elusive. You see that a lot in the Arab Middle East and in Pakistan. So these tend to be places, and as you can see, they're all over the world, where people tend to talk in these ways, to have these styles of communication. Now, obviously, this is a brief, incomplete representation of much broader information. And due to the size and variation in cultures within countries, they didn't always include all countries. This is just a brief summary. India and Africa aren't there because there are so many disparate communities within those continents that there's no way to reasonably add them to such a small chart. Nigeria, different parts of Nigeria, people speak in an expressive and direct way. In some parts, in other parts, people are much more indirect. So this chart is not exhaustive. This one I'm showing you is just illustrative. And you can imagine these findings have all kinds of implications for geopolitics and international negotiations and so forth. But of course, they also have implications for all of us individually, because these styles are not only regional and ethnic, they are also cultural, which means personal, right? So let's bear that in mind for a bit. Cultural stuff is always personal. This year, we have begun to lean more deeply into what love beyond belief can mean to us as a church. This morning, I want to consider what love beyond belief might mean to us as individuals. As many of you know, I'm from an immigrant family. Russian Jewish on my dad's side and Polish and Italian Catholic on my mother's side. My parents were the first generation born in this country, and they were raised in poor, noisy, urban neighborhoods. So as you might imagine, all those ethnicities combined to make for a fairly noisy and emotive household when I was growing up. And I don't want you to think crazy emotive. We didn't shout at each other all the time or burst into tears or song on a daily basis, not even weekly. But when it was time to shout in anger or just to someone from the other end of the house for whatever, we shouted. When it was time for tears, we cried, occasionally while shouting. All this is still true for us. When we are mad, we say so. And if we have to, we fight. When we have a problem, we say so. There is nothing swept under our carpets. We don't sit on our anger or issues ever. And after a fight, not that we all enjoy a fight, because we don't, but after a fight, the issue is resolved and the air is cleared and it's done, which helps us all let go and move forward. When we are excited, we raise our voices and talk fast. When we're really excited, we talk over each other, all racing to contribute to the story or point. And we think this is fine. It probably doesn't help us slow down that we all grew up on the East Coast, where studies show that people do everything faster, including talk. Now, some years ago, I married into the Maclays, a family of Scots, Welsh, and German Presbyterian ancestry, a family that settled in rural Pennsylvania. One side goes back many, many generations, many hundreds of years. Tim's family is always warm and calm and gentle. Always. They speak slowly and deliberately, and no one else speaks until the one who's talking is totally done. And then sometimes there's a pause. What happens when they fight? They don't. Not, as I first supposed, because they sweep everything under the carpet in an uptight, repressed way, but because they just don't get angry very easily, and especially not at each other. In this pressure cooker time of COVID, I have witnessed a couple of unprecedented instances of short temper, but even then, it doesn't become a fight. Almost never do two Maclays raise their voices at the same time. They're gentle with each other and unfailingly supportive. What do my parents say when they're really worried about me for some reason? Lizzie, we're afraid you're ruining your life, career, relationship, da-da-da-da. Insert big noun, whatever it is. What do Tim's parents say? In the vanishingly rare instances when they are not crazy about his choice and they actually decide to say so or are forced to by our seeking their opinion, they say, that wouldn't be my first choice. At this point, I'd like to refer us all back to that second chart. As you see, it turns out that I communicate just like a person from Russia, or in Europe, Greece, and Italy. My family uses engagement style. All those places are where we come from. When I lived in Greece for a few years, I fit right in. And Tim communicates using discussion style, direct and restrained, just like a person from the parts of Europe his family comes from, the United Kingdom and Germany. Every time we took this intercultural training, I've had it 3 times, people taking the training to learn how to talk to folks from different cultures would say, oh, this is why my spouse is like this, or my parents are like this, or my friend is like this. There were always deeply personal implications from that chart. Now, there are all kinds of ways to understand why we are each the way we are and why the people we love are the way they are. Increasingly, researchers are coming up with characterological surveys like the Myers-Briggs test and the Enneagram to understand who we are and how we are. And there's a lot of enlightening self-understanding to be gained from these concepts. As the saying goes, to say I love you, one must first be able to say the I. But the ultimate point of all these surveys is not just to understand who we are and why, but who we are in relation to others. And I don't mean to use this only to summarize differences. Well, she's intuitive and I'm not, or I'm an extrovert and he's an introvert, or I'm an 8 and they're a 9. That's the least use of understanding ourselves we can manage. Mere self-understanding, perhaps entrenchment, and the neat tying of a bow around the box of someone who is different from us. But these tools are best used for strengthening our relationships with the people we love, differences and all. Because in all our relationships with those we love, with spouses and partners, friends and family, I guarantee you there will always be bridges that need building. Who and how you are is where the bridge needs to reach on one side. Who and how the person you love is, any person you love is the other side of the bridge and where the bridge needs to reach to. Bridges don't have to be built using charts and categories like those we just looked at, but they do have to be built with understanding and intention. So whatever tools help us understand and shape our intent for our bridge, we need to use them for our relationships with the people we love. The charts I've been showing you this morning are just one way. According to the chart, my spouse has discussion style, I have engagement style. We both care, we both communicate, but we don't communicate the same way, which we could certainly have told you even before I was introduced to that chart. But the chart is meaningful because I can point out to Tim that when I start talking while he's still talking, that's my culture. Believe it or not, it shows my enthusiasm for the conversation. From his way of being, he experiences it not as enthusiasm and contribution, but as incredibly rude and arrogant. Now, with this chart, he knows it's not personal, and he can try to deal with it because it's not just rude and because it's part of how my people are. And I know that this is not part of who he and his people are, and that I need to moderate my usual ways when I'm with his family because I love them and I want our all being together to work. And I appreciate ways that I can demonstrate my love and gratitude for them in my life. It's not a revelation to any of us that loving a person doesn't make us alike to them. This is so often the essence of what challenges relationships between us all, even within families, parents and children, siblings, and also friends, lovers, partners, or spouses. We start off different, or we grow apart, sometimes in ways that have nothing to do with those charts and everything to do with identity or life experience. Regardless, the task of love is always the same, because love isn't by itself the bridge. Loving someone will not all by itself magically get us from here to there and back again. What love offers is that it is one of those rare, great powers in life which we don't need to use to wish for magic or miracles, because love can give us all the strength and intention necessary to build bridges, to build as many bridges as we need for all the people that we love, and to maintain them for a lifetime. But love doesn't just give that power and intention for bridge building, it also requires the work of bridge building from every one of us. All love needs bridges. All love needs bridges, including the labor that goes into bridges and their upkeep. When we think of the greatest loves and the greatest lovers, we think of fictional icons like Don Juan, or legendary figures like Mark Antony and Cleopatra, or even historical icons like Shah Jahan, builder of the Taj Mahal in honor of his deceased wife. But all these are ultimately distractions. The greatest mark of love is not a sweet nothing whispered in an ear, nor creating an empire and then forsaking it all, nor the world's most beautiful mausoleum. The greatest mark of love is the invisible bridge. All the invisible bridges that stand around us, graced with beauty and endurance to match any of the world's most famous bridges: the Brooklyn Bridge, China's Shenyang Bridge, Iran's Kaju Bridge, France's Pont du Gard, Venice's Bridge of Sighs, Peru's 600-year-old Keswachaki rope bridge, which is rebuilt. And think about this in terms of what I'm saying to you now. The 600-year-old Keswachaki rope bridge is rebuilt every year. Consider them not just as feats of vision, engineering, determination, and beauty, sources of commerce and information and movement. Consider them as models or illusions with an A, for countless others that also exist in this world, unseen, remarkable, strong, just as creative, just as beautiful. Some of love's bridges have taken as long to build as any other bridge we all know. Some of love's bridges have withstood massive disaster. Some of love's bridges have spanned extraordinary distances. Some of love's bridges endure, although, or maybe because, they are built with perishable, cherished, renewed resources. Love's bridges stretch between us all and those we love, whatever their design and substance. Each of us who loves becomes their master builder, necessarily, to keep that love protected, connected, and safe. Lovers, builders, make sure to fill the world with your bridges. Mind your bridges and mind your loves, especially now. Nothing matters more. And amen. Which brings us always to our offering. In the description of today's YouTube video is a link to our giving page. You can also go directly to our First Unitarian website and choose the Give button. Please do it. We really need you to follow the link or go to the webpage. Online worship has made a huge dent in our income from weekly offerings, and that income was a critical part of our budget this year. Someone pointed out to me this week, no one has to do it during the service. You can stay and enjoy the service and give after it's over. That is great. That's fine. If there's been something in this service that touched you especially, please do. Please don't forget to do it later. We are here for you, and we hope you are here for First You. Whatever you can give, be it large or small, we are grateful. Thank you so much for all you give and all you do and all you are. I have 2 invitations of particular ways you can get involved in serving our faith in the near term that are both very important and utterly different. The first one is we have our congregational meeting. Hopefully you remember this from last week. The Prudential Committee is calling a special meeting of the congregation, which will be held at our Zoom coffee hour after worship next Sunday, February 14th. The purpose is to simply correct some terminology to the bylaw amendment that we approved at our annual meeting back in June. You may remember we added an amendment to indicate where the assets of the church would go in the incredibly unlikely event that the church ever dissolves. We did this because the IRS told us we had to. We never had, and it was an oversight, and we needed to get it done as part of an application to become a recognized 501c3 nonprofit organization under the Internal Revenue Service Code. So they told us now that the wording of our amendment has to be clarified to indicate that the recipient of the church assets, which would be the Unitarian Universalist Association, is also a recognized 501c3 organization, even though they know that perfectly well. So we have to have the meeting, do this tiny change to the language. It's not a big deal. It's going to take very little time to do, but we have to do it. And if we don't do it now, we're going to lose a year and a half of work and have to start over. Please, please, please come to the coffee hour and help us have that meeting quickly and expeditiously. Make sure we have a quorum. We'll get it done, and then we'll move into coffee hour. The second thing is, I have a question, which is, are there any lessons that love has taught you? As you have guessed, love is our theme this month. And we have a service about love lessons coming up later in the month. Maybe an early relationship taught you how to recognize good love or bad love, or what to value in someone you fell for, or how to see beyond glamour to reality, or how to appreciate substance more than looks, or it's not for me to predict what we've all learned from early loves in our lives, but I would like to share some of what we've all learned in the upcoming sermon for this service later in the month. Hopefully this is not the first time you're hearing about this, but in case it is, love lessons, welcome. Please email me a few sentences, maybe a paragraph at most, about your own love lesson, some lesson you learned early in an early love in your life, and how you learned it. I cannot guarantee that every story that you share will be featured, but I can guarantee that every story will be important to me as well as to you, and that I will be grateful for all of them. So I hope to hear from you soon. Our benediction comes from the words of Unitarian Universalist Frederick Gillis. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us now and always.
We carry the flame of peace and love and hope until we meet again.